Okay, it's 4 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to start by acknowledging that this meeting is respectfully held on the traditional territory of the Sycus First Nation, on whose land we live, work, and play. We have an agenda circulated. Would somebody like to move adoption? All in favor? That's carried. Lone item on the agenda, budget 2026. And Margaret.
All right. So we're at our second budget meeting. I'm going to go over a few items from the first one to start, and then we'll get into more detail on the sections of the individual budget that has been put together. So the budget has been built with a 2.1% increase on the decreased tax collection amount that we are going to be receiving for 2026.
And I'll just pause right there. So a 2.1% increase on the decreased amount would result in a 7.3% decrease to the overall
Decrease
budget.
to the overall budget.
Okay.
Yes, because we,
Yes.
yeah. Yes. So the decrease is about close to $250,000 or $500,000. So in the end, it's $400 and some thousand that we are below just in the industrial tax base. And overall, because of the additions to the assessment class, the new constructions, we're at about 300 and some thousand that were down in taxation that we had to find within the budget this year. The 2.1 is CPI that will be on that new amount just to keep us current and keep it increasing so that it's not just going backwards the whole time. Each 1% will gain the district about $58,478, which isn't a lot, but that's what 1% looks like right now. We're holding the mill rates at 2025 levels for the remaining major industry assessment base. So whatever we were taxing them at and that rate in 2025 is what the rate we will start in 2026, just to keep that consistent so that with the decrease, it doesn't go backwards and the mill rate go down, which would result in even less taxation. We are going to increase class 2, which is the utility class rate, 2.5 times business class, which is the maximum we can tax them. That gains us some additional funds in there to help make up some of that difference. Within this budget, year-end adjustments and transfers have not been fully completed, so you won't see that in here. I've estimated what they're going to be, so they are pretty close, but there will be differences within the numbers that you see for the reserve transfers and expenditures as the last few things come in. The budgets remain similar to 2025, with the largest increase in operations for 2026 relating to the centennial celebrations. So when you look at operations in the general fund, you're going to see that it's like $400,000 higher than it was in 2026 or 2025. But that's offset by funding that we are going to receive for the celebration as well as the transfer from the reserve. So it looks like operations is increased, but that's offset by additional funds.
Thanks. And so, yeah, I saw the number in there, and that's a good number, and people should know that that's the rough cost of this. Where do we account for the money that comes in? Like say sponsorships X, 150, and then so where
it's
do we
under donations.
Okay.
So in the revenue section, you'll see under donations, there's an estimate of about 200,000, I think.
Yeah.
Is what I have in there. Yeah.
And
So, and the rest comes from the reserve. So the rest will
from the
come from
reserve, like
Concord.
community forest reserve.
Yes, whatever we
Good, just so
make up.
everyone understands
Yeah,
that it's not
the
a
donations
tax.
could be more than that,
Yeah,
but that's
okay,
what I
good.
put
Thank
in
you.
there for starting in this budget. All right, so we're going to move to administration. I'm going to go through each section in the general fund like I usually do, and I'll make some comments on some notable changes. And then if there's any questions or there's anything council would like to add, please feel free to ask away. We have other staff here to answer questions as well too, if I don't have the answers for you.
Did you say we're both?
We're administration.
Thank you.
So in administration, we have a decrease for 2025 or 2026 over the 2025 budget. So this mostly has to do with the removal of a position that was a position that we had that had stayed in the budget, but we no longer need that position. So we've removed that position. So that has been taken out. There was an increase for the election for 2026 within administration, and that's about $25,000. And that's for newly elected training as well as expenses related to the election itself. There's a reduction in expenses of the local government housing initiatives, which that allocation, which is also offset by grant funding. So that is in there. We did spend some in 2025 on updating the OCP. Is that correct, Pauline? The OCP. There's an increase for the economic development expenses with the hiring of the economic development manager. These costs are offset by grants, which you'll see in the revenue section. There's the RBL grant for about 84,000, and there's the NDI ED grant of 50,000, and both of those have been confirmed. So that position is fully funded. There is also a new lease for a new district pool vehicle included in there, but overall the increase is not, or the decrease in operations is only about $100 and some thousand. Any questions on administration?
I just want to provide a little bit of a clarification. So we're looking at utilizing pool vehicles through a lease program. So with the lease program, we only pay for what we use. So with the pool vehicle that, for instance, is used out of the district hall, the mileage is always quite low. And so then it reduces the amount that we actually pay. We can also turn those vehicles over in 3 to 5 years and get something new again and just kind of keep it on that rotating basis. This will help to reduce the costs over purchasing vehicles for these activities. And it also means that we're not trying to pull things out of Public Works all the time that are maybe not the most representative for the elected officials and the office staff to be able to use for various different events.
Swimming.
All right, so we'll move on to Public Works. Again, there's no major changes from 2025 in the 2026 budget. There's a few things like the increase for the asset management software and maintenance, which you'll see in there. The seal coating was not completed in 2025. It's been carried into 2026. The banner and Christmas decorations decrease that was completed in 2025. And we have an additional amount allocated under the building maintenance just to supplement the upstairs renovation so we can finish the public workshop. And within the administrative salaries, that includes project management. So that's included within there.
Hi, thanks, Margaret. I just had a question. I noticed in 2025, our consulting services was 38,000 plus, and then you've budgeted 10,000 for 2026. Why was there such a big bump up for consulting? Was that quick save or?
There was those were the traffic studies that were completed.
Okay,
Yeah, that council requested.
Yeah.
okay, good.
And that's why it was a little higher than the actual budget.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions on Public Works? Move on to the airport. The only change within the airport function is the reduction in the weather station upgrades. Those upgrades were completed, so that account has now been decreased once again. But otherwise, operations remain consistent in this budget from 2025. The garbage budget, the only change here is the commercial cardboard has been removed in entirety as the chamber has taken over that function that we had for an interim period. And we are also still putting the garbage truck payment, the one that was being put towards the police reserve to pay back money when we purchase the garbage truck that we have. We've kept that payment intact in here to now be put into the garbage truck reserve for replacement eventually of the garbage truck we have. So we plan for that.
Asking the regional district rep, like I do every year, when are we going to tipping fees for garbage?
That's a ways off yet.
So
Yeah. They've got to put scales in both places. So until you see scales, it's not coming anytime soon.
that would affect them.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're on to Arena. There have been a few changes in Arena. We have an increase in revenue for 2025, which is great. And this is in large part to our new tracking software and billing software that was implemented mid 2025 or 2024, and we ran it for all of 2025. We've also added two casual employees to the Arena complement for staff, which reduced overtime. So that also took down some of our operating costs for the Arena, which was great.
Oh, sorry.
Increase it. Sorry,
Go ahead, Councilman.
I just say, you mentioned, increase in revenue. Was that from rentals or that wasn't from the pickleball use there a year ago? Was it? That was all.
That's all just rentals for rentals of the arena, the mezzanine, and other special events.
I just had, it doesn't, under revenues, I understand we get a lump sum from the regional district for recreation. Is that right? And some of that would go towards a grant from the regional district for recreation for our community. Is that right?
Yes, the regional district gives us $100,000
Yeah.
annually, which goes towards the arena, library,
Yeah.
and ball diamonds,
Right.
actually is what's within the bylaw. So we have prorated that share and kind of set it out, but it's inclusive of recreation in
Yes,
general.
yeah.
So what the bylaw says is they are contributing $100,000 to us to provide recreation to the community of Vanderhoof. But under that caveat of receiving the $100,000, we have to fund the arena, the
Yeah.
library, and ball diamonds
Right.
out of it. But it's really for everything. So there's no set amounts per
Okay.
se for any particular function. But
Okay.
we do have to have the function to
Right.
receive
Yeah,
the
and-
funds.
And I was just wondering, like, do you have is there a specific percentage of that goes towards the arena that you, like what percentage, or do you know, or does that change every year so how much of the recreation budget from regional district goes towards the arena? Is it 25%? Is it?
It's whatever's necessary and
Oh, I
whatever's
see.
needed. So it's not set because
Set,
we only
okay.
receive 100,000 and it's not just for arena.
Yeah,
library,
it's,
for
no, I
all
understand that.
recreation,
Margaret.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
So we don't really set
Yeah.
amounts,
yeah,
but we do have to provide those specific
for
functions
sure.
under
Yeah,
the
So you
bylaw
don't-
to get the funds.
so you
from the
don't
region.
break it down to say, okay, that's
Not,
good.
not really,
Yeah,
no.
all right, thank you.
Just I'll flag that as something that should be revisited before the next budget because again, that amount doesn't nearly come close to the contributions that other regional or other areas contribute to their communities.
So can we move on to the pool now? Are we okay with that? Also on that regional district recreation grant, you will notice in the revenue portions that it has increased by $5,600. That's only for tents They have donated money for tents to cover the centennial celebration. So it's a one-time increase, then it's going to go back to 100,000 again, but it's for that particular expense. So the aquatic facility hasn't changed. We were planning to do some building maintenance in 2025 and that didn't happen. So we've carried that budget forwards. There were some credits that we received on a few invoices from the prior year, which is why there's a credit amount in there, but nothing spent. But we do intend to do those building maintenance activities this year. So the budget has stayed pretty consistent to 2025.
Okay, you're just looking, it's all good. I know. Mine isn't anything to do with the budget, but it is about paying off the debt. When we started this pool, there was a time frame that when we borrowed the money, that you had to borrow the money based at whatever rate is, do you know what that time frame is? Like, can we start to look to pay it down quicker in 5 years, 10 years today? Through MFA, right?
I think we have to go 10 years or
Yeah,
15
okay.
years before we can start to pay down
Okay.
additional. So we're only in year 5.
Yeah, we're not there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're actually in year 7. So it's,
Sneaking up on us.
yeah, I was gonna say it's really sneaking up. Okay. So we're in year 7. All right, so now we'll move on to the Tourist Info Center, Museum Cultural Center. So no real huge changes here. The only changes for staff wages at the Cultural Center, we have added 2 casual workers. So we want to add a casual staff and have a pool so that our staff, when they are off, there is someone to actually cover them because we have minimal staff down there and we find that when one's away, then who's going to cover. So there's an increase there for a casual position. The other,
Sorry. Sorry, I'm just wondering, so do we, is it, and maybe this has nothing to do with budget, but I'm just wondering, do we track community use of the cultural center in the winter time? Like how?
yes, so we keep stats year round of
Okay.
how often people come in and out of the cultural center.
Okay.
It is very busy in the summer, but in the winter it's minimal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry. Is it a space that we can utilize better in the
Yeah.
winter? Like, can we use it for events and, or do we need that resolution of council to say, let's utilize it during the winter a lot more and try to have things, or?
I think we can use it at unlimited to
Okay.
whatever we would like to use it. We just have to make sure there's no tours. During the winter, the only time that we've had drop-ins is if a bus tour says they're coming or a train tour or something they want to go through. And they let us know ahead of time, so we would know when that's happening. But the space is available for use. It always has been, so we can do events there. We're hoping with the hiring of a new person that is going to take over events, that they can do more activities within and have some type of plan for utilizing the winter months better. So under other, this is mostly the grant and aid and grants. And we approved the grants and aid at the last budget meeting, so they have gone forwards and they are in the budget as was approved. Our transportation function continues to stay about the same. The only increase that usually happens there is if something happens to the bus and it needs to be repaired, or if there is a wage increase under union contracts, and that's about it. We do have a grant for this year to buy a new bus. So we have put in a grant under Transport Canada for the remaining portion, and DIT has given us $50,000 to put towards the purchase of a new bus. So if the other grant comes through, we will be looking at that this year.
That's just.
Yes. Cemetery, that is the same again as in 2025. We've taken out the planning and some of the irrigation maintenance and things that we did in 2025. So the only thing that has remained that's been carried forward is a new sign for the cemetery, and we haven't got to that yet, but we're hoping to do that in 2026.
Sorry. So I don't know if this is the time to bring it up, but some of some things we'd like to see and cemetery improvement or just cleanup and aesthetic improvement is something I'd like to see. So is this the time to bring it up or should we just wait?
It depends on what it is you're requesting.
Well,
If
I-
it's capital in nature, then we
Yeah.
can bring it up here. If it's operational, then you can
Mm.
always talk with Will and
Okay,
we can talk
no,
about maintenance.
okay. Yeah, it's going back to 2025. You had the 4,500 in there for cemetery planning. And I went through the graveyard with Shirley Moon last fall. We were just looking at some things that, little things that could be cleaned up probably to make it more inviting, I guess. That's probably. That's a bad word. More, yeah, just, but, just aesthetic, like, just a little, just cleaning up a few things along the fence, just some general cleanup. And then looking at, maybe planting more flowers or, just talking about some of those kinds of things. So one of the things, when I saw the 4,500 for planning taken out of there, I'm just wondering if we can think about, maybe doing a little bit more, particularly this summer to spruce it up, because I would expect that there would be more visitors coming back to visit that space this summer as they're revisiting the community.
And yes, that could be covered under the grounds maintenance part of this.
Okay.
And
Okay,
that can be taken care of. The planning itself was for the cemetery plan that we had,
Oh,
which
I
was for
see.
future planning, and that's
Okay.
why it's removed now, because we had that plan made that showed the expansion and where we were going to put new ash spreading gardens, the columbarium.
Sure.
So there's a plan for the future
I
for
see.
where
Okay,
we're going to put more people.
great. Okay, thanks.
And just on that, before we go to Councillor Frankel, just when we get there, Director Moon did indicate she was willing to bring her checkbook to that
Yeah.
cause, so we should
Yeah.
make sure that we do
Yeah.
capitalize on that. Councillor Frankel.
Just want to echo Councillor Loze's comments, with parents that want to go certain places nowadays, and they're looking at cemeteries. My mom, looking at Quesnel, I went and visited Quesnel, and I think we need to set that. I don't know where the process is. It's not probably at this budget, but we have to look at making it more. Columbarium that we've all talked about, the one in Quesnel, you can sit and sit in a where there's waterfalls and trees and stuff like that. So I would really hope that we as a group would see that as an important function, maybe not this year, but start to make sure it's on everybody's radar, that we're starting to look at making that better than the rectangle and the L shape that it is, because it is, we need to make it more inviting. So I don't know how to get that on, if it's a resolution or however that would work well.
So I would suggest that when we have the discussions in regards to strategic planning, let's add that as one of the things that we want to discuss. Then we can start to put together a budget that's associated with it and make sure that it doesn't unfortunately fall off the plate. So make sure that we can keep on top of it.
So for parks, again, not much of a change for 2026 over 2025. There are a few increases and decreases in different areas. We've increased the campground washroom maintenance and repairs as we continue to have challenges there. So there are expenditures that we've had to spend. there. And repairs to the caretakers building, there are some rundown kind of portions that need some care. So there'll be some cleanup there. Also, there's an increase to beautification to prepare for the centennial. So we've put a little bit more in the budget under beautification for the town in general, just to, make things look nice for the centennial. Other budget adjustments and decreases have been done within the budget where we haven't utilized funds to cover off these additional pieces. There is no change under recreation except for the addition of the 100-year anniversary budget.
One item there just is concert in the park. I don't think we'll probably do this year.
Yes.
Wait. I don't think there'll be enough energy to.
Did talk about a lot.
So, yeah,
Did talk about. Take money out of there, but it's,
so maybe you could go over to that.
just have a, because we talked about moving things over to the Centennial a little bit, it's just something to think about.
Yeah, I would suggest that we leave the budgets at the
Yeah.
529.3 within that whole function, and then we can move it, because often one will go over and one will go
Yeah.
under, but we use that amount allotted for the event. So if we don't do concert in the park, we
Okay.
could use it towards a
If we've
different
got that
event.
flexibility, that's great.
And it's good to have that there for that. Under fire, this is where you're going to see most of the changes within the budget besides the centennial celebration. So there are quite a few changes that are happening within here, and that's due to the increase in the minimum wage. In 2025, we only had a partial year of that coming into effect. 2026, it'll be the full year, which is why you see the budget's consistent, but not the full expenditure within 2025. There is also the addition of the deputy fire chief, which is in here, which is offset by grants. So there are some Edema grants that we receive, as well as the Fire Smart grant that will be used to offset the wages for 2 to 3 years for that position. And then at that time, then we'll have to look at where the additional funds will come in the budget. After that, there is some software that needs to be purchased for, I think it's called First Due. And there is an explanation in here as to what the fire department needs to utilize that software for. There is some additional staff development, and that's to add in some training for the new deputy fire chief. There is an addition of budget to the fire prevention materials, as some of them are outdated. So we need to replace the actual educational materials that are down at the fire department. And there is an increase in the equipment purchases. There's lots of little things that the fire chief needs to fix down at the fire hall and replace. So I believe the request was for $100,000, but we've done 50,000 this year and hope to put in the second 50,000 in 2027. The full list of the 100 is included so that you can see the full amount, but we've put 50 in for 2026. And there's also some training grounds maintenance upgrades that we would like to have done there. So if you have any questions, Nelson is here.
Questions?
Under protective services, this one fluctuates quite a bit, and it depends on the grants that we receive. So here is where we put all our grants when we have ESS grants or EOC equipment grants. So they fluctuate. Sometimes we have 3 going, sometimes we have 2. So you're going to see those numbers because of that fluctuate. That they're offset by grants, and I've noted what is offset by grants here. So the Fire Smart coordinator salary is down because, like I mentioned, we have the Edema grant that's covering part of the deputy fire chief, and then there's a portion of the Fire Smart grant that's covering that as well. And that's the portion here, plus the expenses that you see for the 100,000 for 2026.
Can I ask what a UBCM Next Generation 911 is?
It's
So-
covered by a grant, but what is it?
So that was received by all the communities in this area for upgrades to our 911 system. They haven't done it yet, but
Okay.
we've all received funds for when that eventually happens to cover off costs that we may have implementing that new service.
Okay.
I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but the funds are there for it. So we're just holding that for the moment. So now we're on to our transfer to the police reserve. So our police reserve right now is about at 2.6 million. And this is to cover for the eventual costs of policing within our community, should we have to cover some of those costs if we reach the $5,000 limit, which we haven't yet. We have the annual contribution of 150,000 still in this budget. It is up to council when you feel that that reserve is large enough to stop doing that transfer to the reserve. But it is in again for this year. So that'll put us at about 2.8 million at the end of 2026 in that reserve.
Yeah, so the recent discussions down at UBCM, or sorry, the CAO forum, was that the cost for an officer is getting more and more expensive. It can cost anywhere up to about $200,000 per member. So, and then there's equipment on top of that and all those types of things. So there were some jokes that if you had your census information just a little bit, or you knew when the census was going to happen, you might just send a few people to Mexico when they were going to do it. It'd be cheaper for us. So, but yes, it's definitely a good thing that we're putting this money aside. We will have to have some discussions during our strategic planning to say what level do we want to get up to, and how long we want to continue putting money away into this reserve.
If I could add to that, Will, you know, we were involved in the UBCM tri-party police review. And one of the options they talked about was combining detachments, and the other one was lowering the limit. So I think it's very prudent that we keep putting money away, because that limit could move from 5,000 to 4,000 tomorrow because of budget constraints in the province, in the federal government. And I think this is really good planning to keep it going, because we do not know where that limit's going to be. So
That is correct. Any other questions on that? Moving on to COM4, I've kept the revenue that we're going to receive in 2026 consistent with 2025. It may be lower, it may be higher. It should be around that amount. A change in this budget for this year is the BCCFA grant that we received for 23,100. The offsetting expenses are there as well. The information is within your binder as to what that grant covers, so that'll have to be completed sometime in 2026. Fiscal includes our loans. So there are the two pool loans that you can see there, plus there's the one equipment loan that we have still, and the proposed 630,000 equipment loan for the capital items that are within the capital budget. The next one is the actual vehicle lease costs and the schedule, which shows you how much will be operational costs. So instead of purchasing the vehicles outright, it becomes an operational cost. So then you're paying monthly and you're paying GST and PST on that. So we claim back the GST. So it just becomes part of operations instead of a capital purchase, which is a little easier on the budget. There are 3 proposed vehicles here. So there is one for Public Works, there is one for the fire department, and there is one as a pool vehicle for the district office and council. Yes, the pool vehicle. Yeah, the good. All right, so now we are going to
Just one
go.
thing on that one. The fire department vehicle will actually be covered as part of the
Yes.
grant funding that goes towards that. So if there is an issue with mileage or anything like that, we can actually make the decision at the end of that to buy that vehicle out and not have to worry about the mileage component. But we have that 5-year process or whatever number of years that we go through where we're not paying for that. So we will get the opportunity to buy that at that point if we want to.
When we put in the Fire Smart grant, we included a leased vehicle for a deputy or Fire Smart person so that we would have that extra vehicle. Right now, we only have the one vehicle at the fire department. So now I'd like to move to general capital. So you're gonna have to go back to the front again. It's about the third tab in. So the first spreadsheet you're going to see is our 2025 projects and where the costs and budgets ended up being sitting at the end of this year. These may change a little bit as well, but this was my close to year end kind of spreadsheet that I could do. It shows you how each project was funded, if it was funded and what fund it was funded from. It gives you a few overages that we had in some of the projects. The largest one being the quick save demolition. As we got into it, there were things that we couldn't stop once we kept going. The liability that we have on our financial statements was used for most of that. There still is a book liability for 2026, so we will be continuing to use up that liability as we finish the remediation for that site. The other ones were very small. The blue ones are carry forward projects that you will see in the actual capital on the next page. So those have been included in our projects for this year. They're carry forward, so we are continuing to work on them. They don't require approval as they're within the 5-year capital in our financial plan bylaw, and they're already in the works. There are additional new projects on the capital sheet, and we can go through those. So the first project is the airport turn pads. We're looking at getting grants to cover probably 80 to 85% of that. In the budget, it's fully covered by grants except for a small portion, which is coming out of surplus. We will see in the end how many grants we get. I think there's one outstanding right now, and within the next month or so, we should know what portion, if any, will be contributed by that. Any questions on the turn pad?
Not so much on the turn pads, but from our overall on the airport property altogether, is there any update on the land property that we're looking to purchase for a terminal site?
So that is on there. As you can see right underneath the turn pads on there, there is a land purchase. That is an in-camera conversation that we
Okay.
can have. Most land purchase conversations happen in
Yeah,
camera.
no,
So.
sounds good, thanks.
So the next item is the library carpet. So we have a quote for about $40,000 to look at the library carpet and replace it. I have some pictures. It is pretty bad. So it is in the budget to be replaced this year. It'll be squares like what we have here. So they've had some vandalism instances where there's been drawings. So this allows the ability to pull a square, replace a square instead of the full what they have now. We have the arena upgrades, which are just being carried forward. There's a small bit of work that remains at the end of 2025, which will be completed in 2026. And next we have the Public Works new office space. So these are the offices that weren't completed in the initial build of the Public Works building. So the upstairs right now is empty. So this is to put additional workspaces, a meeting room, storage printer area, washroom, kitchenette, and it will house the project coordinator as well as the asset management tech. So right now they're in other offices that are going to need to be used in the bottom by other staff as they come on board. The quick save remediation, we've talked about this. So this is the remaining that's going to be done in this year. 142
Just
cannot,
a second on that one. Just to be clear on that one, so this is for the reporting components of it. So they're still in the process of determining exactly what needs to happen to that site. There may be some work that can be completed as part of it within this budget, but there still needs to be determination of what level of contamination is there and what the actual use will be on the site before they make a determination on how much remediation they have to do to the site and what type of work.
and again, this is for the additional reporting, and just to determine that there is a liability that will be booked within the financial statements. And I think it's going to be around 286,000, not the 400 and some that we had in the past. It'll be reduced a bit for that site, but that will be for the remediation of the site once we know exactly what that remediation is going to be. So now we have 142 Connaught. So this is the building that we own next door to the district office. So these are just some upgrades that need to be done, which is regular maintenance to the property. The fence needs to be replaced and some items like that.
Yeah, I was glad to see that on there too. If you look at it, needs it. Remember, it came across the desk here last year too during this time, and we put it off. But it's glad to see that in there for sure. Thanks.
So that's just for external, that's not internal, like,
Yes.
okay, because I think,
Yeah, we've done a walkthrough and a discussion with Northern Health. There's some areas where it's showing some signs of wear, but it's most of it is just cosmetic. And so we're dealing with those things under the operational funds that we have assigned as well. But there's nothing major that needs to be done inside.
The courthouse upgrades, this has been completed. I am just awaiting the actual invoice from the province to pay them our proportionate share for the fire system that they put in. The windows have been replaced, so that part was completed in 2025, but this additional part is done, but we just need to pay for it in 2026. I'll let Will speak to the wheeled excavator replacement.
Yeah, so we have an opportunity here again with a unit that is lightly used. It's got less than 500 hours on it. We put in a budget for the full replacement cost of a brand new unit as part of the budget, but we'd like to get council's approval in order to go ahead with this rental unit. The benefit of going with the rental is we get the opportunity to try this unit because it is slightly different than the unit that we currently use. And with it being used, we can rent it, and if we don't like it, we can actually send it back. With the rental, we also get 85% of the rental cost goes towards the purchase. So none of that money is really wasted. And like I said, it's a little bit different in configuration than the one that we're currently using. So making sure that the operators are comfortable with it before we purchase it. These units are usually customized when they're purchased. So that's why when they buy them brand new, you can't rent them and then give them back if they don't like them. So this is a really good opportunity for us. The unit is a 2024 Volvo wheeled excavator. And like I said, it has 497 hours. It comes in at 290,000. I know that our budget says 570. That was the new price. Plus there's an additional amount that we're going to have to spend in order to buy attachments for it. Equipment like buckets and scrapers and thumbs and brushers and all of these types of things are the same age as the old one. And so they're past their due date, and we'll sell those as a package when it goes out to auction at the end. So we're looking at replacing all of those after we go through this rental process. So.
Who we got first? Ken.
yeah, sure. What was the age in that old one?
The old one is a 2006.
Okay.
So we've gotten a fairly good use out of it.
20 years, okay.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
So I'm just wondering how, okay, so this one has, you said 497 hours on it. How many hours make it past its prime?
Well, it all depends on the type of use. And because of the nature of the work that we do, we have to make sure that it stays current. The challenge with having older equipment is that if it's broken down, we don't have the
Right.
ability to do our water main replacements and things like that. Just number of years can also be a deterrent for these units
Okay.
because it's sitting outside, it's going through weathering and all of that stuff. All of the hoses and whatnot start to become a problem. It's all based off of hydraulics, so all of those components, the rings, the seals, all of those things start to fail just from age, not necessarily from use. So I think we'll get a good auction value back on that unit when we go to sell it because there's not a lot of those heavy wear components, but it's the reliability that's starting to go down on the unit that we have.
Okay, so 490, so like we got 20 years out of the last one. huh?
Yeah, it's got to have probably like 20,000 hours on it.
Okay, that's, okay, thanks.
And I was just gonna ask too, you mentioned the brand name of the new one was Volvo, which is the same as the loader you got last year.
Yep.
And that's been working out good too, as far as that.
Yeah, that's part of the reason for the rental as well, is that there's slight differences in the way that it operates. So of course, all of the operators that are used to CAT equipment and John
Yeah.
Deere equipment, there's slight differences in all of those. The footprint for this excavator is quite a bit smaller, so it's going to be beneficial for us when we're dealing with doing excavations, for instance, out at the
Smaller turn
cemetery.
radius and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Volvo has a very good reputation. And the other part of it is that instead of having a 2-piece boom before it hits the bucket, it actually has 3 pieces. So that allows for better visibility from inside of the cab. So you've seen the one that we have when it's going down the road. They can't see anything over on this side except for the mirror that's on the other side. So it takes a lot of effort for them when they're driving that equipment out around the streets. So the new one has cameras. It has, again, that boom that kind of gets out of the visibility areas. It has a shorter turning area, so it can get into tighter spaces and less chances of it hitting anything. So there's a lot of benefits that way as well.
Yeah, and like you mentioned too, I think with the one you're gonna sell.
Yep.
You know, it's been well maintained and it's, you know, it's 20 years old or whatever, but it probably will still have pretty good market value.
Yeah.
Because it's not gonna have the kind of hours that a private contractor machine would
Yeah,
have.
and or the abuse.
Yeah, or the
that
abuse.
sometimes goes with that, so.
Yeah, no, I think that new one sounds really good.
So with that, if we are going to do the rental to purchase, we have in the budget here only a loan for purchase of the broom plus the wheeled excavator. So the rental component isn't built into this budget. So we will need a resolution to be able to do those 2 months of rental payments, which will eventually go towards the purchase out of the equipment reserve
Yeah, so
to add to the budget.
we've asked for up to 3 months just so
Oh,
that
3
if there's
months.
any kind of
Sorry, Will.
delays, but we can purchase at any time. So I think we have, yeah.
Down there still. So it's that the rental of a 2024 Volvo wheeled excavator for up to 3 months at $70,000 be approved and that the funds come from the Equipment Reserve Fund.
Discussion? All in favor? All right.
So the old one, the funds go towards the new one or in the general?
back.
Goes back into the equipment reserve, yeah.
Okay.
So the other piece of equipment that was approved in the loan from the resolution we got at the first budget meeting was the loader pickup broom. And so that is the next item in the capital. After that, we have the community bus replacement, which we have already discussed, that should be covered by grants. Also, at the last budget meeting, we had a resolution to purchase the water tender truck, and there was a presentation by our Director of Protective Services. think that's what it is. I'm trying to get his title right instead of saying Nelson. Other- But if there are any additional questions for him on the water tender,
Don't have a finalized date, but it'll be here before the end of March.
So what for fire season?
Absolutely. As soon as they tell me, I'll let you know.
should be 3 years.
I might.
Next is the erosion mitigation project. So in 2025, DOV Riverside Willow Park planting project was planned to complete 180 meters of willow planting. However, the planting was overachieved with a total planting of approximately 1,240 willow stakes. So over a 240 meter square area. Survival appears to be about 70%. We also did the Stony Creek willow planting project, and we completed about 300 meters or meters square or whatever that is of willow planting with a total planting of approximately 600 willow stakes. So this is for the next phase. I'm hoping to put in an application to UBCM as all the other phases have been covered under their granting program. So as soon as it opens, I'm hoping to put in these next 2 phases for Stony Creek and for the Riverside for 2026.
So if we're successful in getting those grants and we embark on completing the project, can we put up signage around there about what the project's about and how it was funded?
Yes.
Because I think our community got some pushback from folks who didn't understand how we had grants in the past. And it sounds like a lot of money, even though it's a worthwhile project. So I think it'd be good to educate people that money didn't come out of their taxation dollars. So.
And I think too, as you said at the beginning, making sure it's clear why it's being done and why they don't want to pull them out.
Yes, we did have some issues with pulling out of the willow stakes. The VTCC and Tourism Enhancement Project is still ongoing. It's about halfway complete, so it's been carried forward to complete in 2026. That includes the tablets and some other little items that haven't been completed, but it's completely covered by a grant or partially covered by a grant, mostly covered by a grant. So that'll be completed in 2026. We're also looking to do the compression and seal joints on the Recreation Bridge. There hasn't been much maintenance on that since it was built, so this will be the first time I think there's going to be an overhaul on it.
Gives you a shock when you look at the cost of that, yeah.
Yep. The CN fencing, we're hoping to do a continuation on the other side of the tracks of the fencing down to Silversmith. The grant hasn't opened yet, but I've been watching it. So as soon as the Rail Safety Improvement Grant Program opens up, we hope to put in another application. The fencing on the A&W side was covered by a grant. So we're hoping to do the other side. Again, this is to work towards whistle cessation through the town. Yep.
That's a long road, but I think the safety improvements of having people crossing in regular places is worth every penny.
Yeah, this is a good project. The only question I have is that we're hearing about more people taking the train from Prince George to Vanderhoof to tour around, and where the offloading site is at the old depot. Will the fencing detour people from coming in and going at that site? So I'm just wondering if there's how it's going to be set up there to still allow for people to use the site so they can get on and ride the train and go to Rupert or go back to Prince George or whatever. Just wondering if there's a design that's coming forward that takes that into it.
So I think the initial proposal, while the drawing kind of shows it being on the other side, I think we're actually looking at going on the south side.
South side.
And we'll continue it along through that section. There's some areas where, like in behind the Chevron station, we just have to figure out where the property lines are.
Oh, okay.
But it provides us with an opportunity to have that continuous path along that section as well.
Right.
So we're looking at those as opportunities there. I agree that it would be a little bit challenging to put the fencing on the other side if we are going to have those stops, those locations. But there is ways that we could make arrangements for that. Something similar to what they do, say, at airports where they've got a code that everybody knows that is authorized to use it, and have a gate of sorts in those locations in order to be able to utilize it.
And it'd be nice at some point if we could kind of fix that landing area up too, because right, it's pretty off.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, no, right.
One of the biggest things that we did within this budget is normally under capital, we spend about 500 to 600,000 of taxation dollars on capital, and that's been allotted annually for a long time. So to be able to eat up that deficit from the taxation laws, we've removed some of that out of the budget. So we gain by not using the taxation dollars for capital projects. And we do have the RBA funding now, which we are able to utilize that we didn't have before. So there is no longer the necessity to use taxation dollars to necessarily fund capital during this time. So we have moved the paving, which is usually around $500,000 and is taken out of taxation dollars as operations maintenance. And we have moved it to RBA funding.
Yeah, so you'll see that this year we're down to $100,000 that's coming out of this for this year. But once we go through some of the other projects in the water and the sewer areas, if those projects are not, we've got one that is going to use a fairly large portion of that RBA funding. If that actually gets the grant funding that we're looking for in a different way, then we'll be able to do a very large paving project. The benefit of that is that we'll see that economy of scale, and we'll be able to get more paving done for a lower per meter cost, which will be beneficial for us as well. Creates less disruption for the community when we can do those larger projects and all these tiny little ones. And we have some big ones, for instance, along Stewart, where we're going right through the business district. So we want to find some ways in order to do some improvements through that section at the same time.
The other thing I'll just quickly add on RBA is that it's coming up for renegotiation soon. We want to make sure that that's all spent so that there is, you're showing that it was a need. If it's sitting in a reserve, it's not needed, right? So it's good to get those dollars spent.
And the last item on our general capital is the community-wide risk assessment. So this is a climate risk assessment that we needed to complete through a grant, and we're hoping to get approved. We haven't heard back yet to complete the Knight Creek project. We were going to put in for the Knight Creek project under another granting stream through FCM or GMF, and they said that we had to have the climate risk assessment before we could do that. So we're doing this first, applying for this grant, and then we will be eligible to apply for the secondary grant to complete the Knight Creek project. And hopefully it will be funded.
That risk assessment, can we use the data from 14 years ago that when we looked at our assessment? Like, no?
They want something current. There's new
Yes.
standards and requirements that they're looking for, and it's very, very specific of the information that they're trying to pull together.
Okay, I'm just asking because I mean, Stefan Drury uses that information as well through UNBC. So it's still current to them and it mimics. I get the federal government and the municipal fund is a pain in the ass, but it is pertinent data that's predicting the future and people are still using that data. So if we can convince the feds, that's awesome. Or the mayor can advocate whenever he's around those folks.
Yes, if there is a way to advocate and we can use other information if we don't get this grant, that would be great. Lucky and I did go through a process of talking to them and trying to provide them all kinds of alternative sources of information, and they said that that was not what they would accept. They wanted this, and that it wasn't quite the right information for their application process, so. Kevin, I think Cindy has a question. You're right. So Margaret. I know, I see that. So I just want to backtrack to the arena. So the arena upgrades, have those already been scheduled for this year?
Yeah.
The continuation, yeah.
Yeah, so there's just some of the things that are left outstanding is insulation around the existing pipes. We had to start it up relatively quickly last year.
Yeah.
And so once it starts up, it starts to develop frost around those pipes. And so we can't put the insulation back on those until that frost is removed. So
Okay.
it's things like that that need to be completed. So that work will be started as soon as the ice is out in that section.
Okay, thank you. So the last item for general capital is in the front of your binder. So this is the estimate that we got on the pickleball courts. It is not included in this budget. If council wishes to move forward with this project, we would have to look at where the funding for it will come from. So it is, the estimate is about $972,000 for this build.
Councilor Fairclough.
Yeah, just, trying to get to could this be phased in? Oh, sorry. Could it be phased in? You've got engineering at 300,000 and construction at 6. When we met with the pickleball court, and there's nothing signed in ink, but those people, they talked about being able to help with construction of site prep. And I get it has to be engineered to a certain standard, but I mean, if some of those individuals know what they're doing, we should try to look at that. I would look at trying to do the engineering part this year. I'm quickly going back to but I'm thinking I'm going to step into land purchase under special projects. We have a land purchase reserve of 260,000. So I was just wondering if we can't change, there's something in the special projects with that 260 instead of coming out of COM4 and use COM4 money for the engineering project, part of this project. But I think we have to discuss that because it's land purchases in camera. So. And so it's tough to try and explain.
So the other thing we can do is there are grants available for this type of project, but again, we can start looking at applying for grants. But we've used a lot of the funding streams that we would normally use for this type of project for the centennial celebrations, et cetera. So we put into TC Energy or Centerra, and they've already given out all their contributions that they would usually do to projects like this for 2026 for us. We could start looking for grants for this, but that would still push it into 2027 for anything. Yeah. Because anything we do, even the engineering, if we were to do it now and then apply for grants, we can't put that into the grant. So that would be money that we would have to spend out of our own reserves first. And then once we receive the grants and we're approved, then any construction and costs after that would be under the grants.
So playing the game between pickleball courts, which are not in camera, and land purchases, which are, I'd like to defer that discussion until the in-camera portion so I can explain where I'm coming from. So,
Sure.
Okay. And then you can tell me whether.
And just to be clear, just before we move on to Councilor Van Dola, we could phase this into an engineering portion and a building portion, right? So
Yes.
That's all I'm at.
Yes.
Yeah. Councilor Van Dola.
So in the engineering designs from Urban Systems, it looks like the actual mapping or is taking the District of Vanderhoof requested design on the map, but the budget is based on the option to the ASBA minimum standard. Is that correct? And is there
Yes.
another proposal or another budget item for the ASBA recommended recreational standard?
Yeah, so I mean, the minimum standard is actually very similar in size to the Vanderhoof section. And so the extra footprint that beyond that is minimal.
Oh, okay.
So that's why that's kind of laid out that way. We could go with 3 as the Vanderhoof requested or
Yeah,
the
or the 4.
ASBA minimum standard.
Yeah.
If we wanted to go, it would be just a small initial fee.
I think from the pickleball group to have that one extra court would be beneficial.
The other thing to take into consideration is that this is very high level at this point. So that contingency and engineering amount is very high.
Right,
They've put it at 50%. There are some pieces that we could take a look at as part of that initial piece. The clearing and grubbing, that's pretty much been done already. But the geotechnical work in order to make those determinations and take this design all the way to completion wouldn't hit that 325,000 that's noted there.
Good.
All right, so do we want to move on to the next section and move on to water?
I think we're good. Yep.
So our water operating budget is pretty much the same as 2025. The biggest difference is there is the water meter project that is included in here.
So we need to make a decision on whether we're going to move forward with that project or not. We have a limited amount of time before that grant funding will close. I've asked for an extension and I haven't gotten a response at this point. But it's also, there's a limited amount of time in order to put in 4,500 water meters. So we'll have to make some decisions relatively quickly on whether we're going to move forward with that or just return the money.
And so we can talk about that once we get to the capital and we talk about that
Okay.
project, and I'll finish with operations, so we're not jumping from capital to,
Yeah.
So the only other thing to note within the water fund is the allocation for administrative salaries, so that has gone up a bit. That is to do with just the allocation of the project management portion, which is offset by reserve transfers.
Yeah.
So some of these expenses that look like they're higher in 2026 than they were in 2025 are actually being covered off by RBA money or other money. So it's basically the same. And that's it. That's all I had to say for the operations. So we'll go into the projects now. So carrying forward, that wasn't completed, I believe we did design in 2025, is that correct, Bill? For the Clark Avenue 4th to 6th water main. So the project itself is up to be done this year. So that's carried forward from 2025. There's the development water main upgrade, and this is the portion that we've agreed to pay of the water line that's being installed for the new development construction over here on Burrard and
Yeah.
Douglas, I believe. So that is it's carried forward as they didn't complete that portion in 2025, but hopefully will be completed in 2026. Next is the north side water plant replacement. This we have in a grant for for almost the full amount, I think for 7 million, with 800 being covered out of RBA as per our proposal. The grant has not yet been approved. So we have it in the budget coming out of RBA funding for the full amount. And we would like to do, I believe, design this year so we can move forward with doing that part. If we do receive the grant, of course, we wouldn't use the RBA funding, and that would just remain within the RBA funding pot to be used for other projects.
So just to speak on this one, we decided that we would try to push this through under the RBA just because of the critical nature of this facility. As we've pointed out when we did the pre-design study, the electrical components that are associated with this facility are not up to current municipal standards. So we're wanting to make sure that those are brought forward. We're asking for the pre-approval in order to start with this project under the RBA. I'm going to have to be very careful in regards to what pieces I pull out of the original project, because FCM has it that if you start the project, they will not fund it. So we're going to take out small pieces of it and say, well, those are no longer part of that project. So one of the big things to start with is doing a new test well for a new well on the site. We don't want to take the risk of doing a refurbishment on one of the two that are there, because if they're damaged, then we don't have a water source at that location. We want to drill a new well, do testing on it, make sure it has the capacity, it has the capabilities. And then as part of the other project, we'll actually increase the size of it and make it into a full production well for the site. So that's where we're proposing to start on this. So I think we're going to have a few items that we'll bring forward towards the end for pre-approval on.
Are there any other questions on that particular project? All right, so now we're doing the on-site chlorine generation system. So this is being carried forwards as well. And now we're at the water meter program. So this is the one we received a grant for. We have received money for it. We spent a small amount of it in 2025, about $3,000. Yeah. So
So
Will can
we
speak to that.
spent that money on a communication plan. Part of that was so that we would have that available for the contractor and the consultant for the delivery of the information to the public. We thought that it was important to have that package ready so that we were conveying the message that, or they would convey the message that we were looking to do. But we do need to make a determination on whether we're going to move forward with this project or not at this time.
So I'm just wondering why we wouldn't, because we had discussed this before and, yeah.
Yeah, so there is some struggles in regards to the acceptance of water meters. There has been pushback in the past from various different locations that have had created some challenges associated with the installation of water meters. We're trying to put it in place in order to get a better understanding of where our water is being used. And it's not intended to be for billing purposes at this time.
No.
We want to try to put it forward as an educational device so that people can change their usage habits and be able to deal with leakage before it becomes a problem. And with that, we think that we'll actually see a reduction in the amount of water that we have to produce. That'll help to reduce our operating costs, and it'll help us get more in line with the average usage that you're seeing across the province.
Is our usage higher than?
It's
Yeah.
very high. Yes.
So I think that message has to get out there as well.
Yeah.
There's a purpose for this. It's not.
Yeah. And as part of this program, we're not just looking at doing it in residential, we're doing it industrial, we're
Yes.
doing it in the commercial. So everything throughout every connection that we have will be
Yeah.
metered.
Yeah.
And we do have some very large water users that we
Yes.
know this. And we just need to figure out how exactly we want to convey that message with them as well.
Right.
Just a question. So when I see pilot, I see that, maybe Vanderhoof is the pilot. But to go ahead, and I agree with Councillor Lozey that I think that we need to move forward. Timing's a little difficult, we've just seen a downturn in our economy and a whole pile of other things. But can we not go back to government and say our pilot is not just our entire town, it's going to be north side and it's going to be commercial, and then that's our pilot. And then if it's worth it at the end of the day, then we'll go do the rest of the
So the reason that they've got pilot in there is actually that they're trying this on all the smaller communities throughout the province. And they want to do that because it shows the benefit of water metering and what its usefulness is. The meters that are being proposed will provide you with leak detection information. It'll provide you with usage at different times of the day. It provides opportunities for users to actually have their own data and be able to see exactly what they're using and how they're using it. It allows us to be able to get that information to be able to say, okay, the house we own next door has a water leak in it because it's giving us an alarm on those types of things, right? So if we can start to scrub that down further, then we can say, okay, these are the areas that we need to focus additional attention on that. So the pilot is not specifically for certain areas in here. We're looking at doing our entire community as part of this process as a pilot for the province is what it is.
And I'm just also wondering, like, as we get the message out there about why we want to do this, is there also an educational component about how to conserve water? What kinds of things like watering, using drip, irrigation rather than the sprinkler, those kinds of things?
Yeah, so we do have a water conservation plan.
Okay.
It's back from 2014, I believe it is. But again, it's something that unless there's some information to back it up, people just don't pay attention to it. And when you have the ability to turn on your tap without any
Right.
consequences to
Yeah.
it, then that's
That's it.
so there is the possibility moving forward, once we do all of the education
Yes.
pieces, then we can start to take a look at, okay, now we're going to say the first certain number of cubic meters of water is under your base rate, and then everything after that will be at a certain rate. But we want to try to curb that behavior through education
That's
and
it, yeah.
understanding first.
Yeah. good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, it's not. I think we need to learn from lessons past. And Will, I don't know if we had a burning bylaw and solid wood bylaw, and we tried to, we brought wood stoves in for people to burn, but people feel it's their inherent right to burn, and you can't tell me what to do. And so that is a lesson that we learned, that we're going to have to be really good at communication, because I think and if we're hiring a communications person, that's awesome. But, we've got to get to a point where we know what the questions are going to be. So as council and mayor and council, we should have a session before that communication plan gets out so that we are asking the questions. Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea around the communication, because I think it's really important in order to get people to buy in. Like you talked about, you suggested maybe not doing the whole community, but private users in comparison to those in commercial industry, that usage pales in significance, right? And a lot of folks understand that. And we don't want to become punitive upon those individuals, but somebody would be having a hard time understanding how their watering their garden is going to have much of an impact unless they're shown why we're doing all these things. And it's going to be everyone will be working on this together, and the talk about, where our water tables are and everything else. It has to be this, it doesn't have to be already comprehensive, but a real understanding of why we're doing this.
Yep.
Because I know personally, I'd have a real hard time thinking, well, I'm going to make sure I'm taking care of my water when I know a large user is just continuing to do what they need to do. So I think everybody in the same boat working together to accomplish this goal, it goes a long way. Otherwise, you're not going to buy in, I don't think.
Yeah, and one of the other things is that once we start going through this education program and process, is we can start establishing what the rates would be at. And for a period of time, we can actually send out bills saying, if you're on the water system with a metered rate, this is what you would be paying. If you come back down to what the average person is paying, this is what your rates would be. And so you hit them in the pocketbook without actually hitting them in the pocketbook. And the benefit as well is that we can actually start utilizing that data for our sewer rates as well, because we can correlate the two of them together, right? So there's a lot of different pieces, and I've been through this in different locations. Chilliwack, when we started on our water conservation program, they had a huge increase in population, and we actually didn't see an increase in the amount of water that was being supplied. So, you know, those education programs and getting out there and putting door knockers when you see people sprinkling, having ambassadors out there that are explaining how this stuff works and why we're doing this and why we're doing that, does go a long ways in order to save us money as the municipality, but also the residents as well.
Yeah, thanks. Following up on Councillor Young's talk there too, people are gonna feel like that, where they're trying to conserve and the neighbor is just letting it run, you know, that kind of stuff. But I think using your theory there with sending out phony bills, for lack of a better term, maybe that'll encourage trying to save money by using less. It might be education would do that. If I'm really careful, I don't care if he uses it, I'm still paying less myself. Can actually encourage them to. Yeah, but it's education for sure. That way they have control of what their bill is going to be now.
Lesson by, you know, when we have the speed signs that pop up, okay, that's that, but your fine would be this if you don't slow down. So that's kind of the same thing.
All right, we're good. So the last one is just the SCADA, the remaining portion that is to be completed in 2026 from the project that started in 2025. So now we're moving on to sewer. So again, not much change in either the revenues or the operations for 2026. They are up a little bit in the administration salaries, and that's due to the allocation of the project coordinator. Also, there's the project, the REDIP project that is being included there. You'll see the 880,000, and that's for the septage receiving station that's being carried forwards again from 2025. So the first project is the recreation lift station design. So we're looking to do a design out of the RBA fund for the recreation lift station replacement in 2026. We also have a carry forward of the co-op parking lots sewer replacement. That's our capacity bottleneck project that's being carried forward, and we're hoping to complete that in 2026.
No, it's close. I
Just
have to
leave.
check.
But-
It was very close.
We're also continuing with the north side lift station upgrade. Maybe someone can speak as to where that project is at. That's quite a significant project.
Do you want to speak to it? Okay. So we're getting very close to completion on this. The wet well has been installed. The pipe wing has been connected. We're still working on the electrical components inside of the building. Once we get a lot of those components completed, we're going to start in the process of decommissioning the old site. And it is going to actually be utilized as a screening facility. So we've had over the number of years with the old station where debris was inserted into the pipeline and was causing challenges with blocking up the pumps. So that facility will actually have screening in place and level control. So we'll be able to catch that before it actually hits the pump station. So it's kind of that reuse of a facility that we don't have to pay for, and it provides us with that benefit. We're still waiting for the generator to be delivered to that site as well. If you go by, it looks fantastic. We've got a building that blends in with the neighborhood. We've got the wet well that's out in front with an above ground valve chamber. So crews don't have to do confined space entry in order to work on any of those components. The pumps can be pulled out without actually having to access the site. So it's a huge improvement over what we've had there in the past. And this is going to be the template that we're going to utilize for the future ones. So recreation facility or station the Turner Lift Station. They'll go in a similar type fashion in the future.
I just add to that, anybody hasn't seen it, go for a drive down We Drive. It just looks like a residential outbuilding. It's really good.
The neighbor was insistent that we do this. No, I'm just kidding. No, I've done this in other communities and it definitely makes it more acceptable for people to have something that blends in when it sticks out the way that some of them do. Who wants something that looks very industrial in their community, right? So the neighbors have been very accommodating in regards to keeping care of the area around there. So we want to make sure that it's in a fashion that kind of blends in with the rest of it. So.
And we have the trenchless sewer repair. So this is our third year with going on these repairs, which is great. So these are CCTV, the project we did earlier in the years, and now we are going and we are repairing all of the problem areas. Will, is there another year on this still, or is this the final year?
Yeah, so once we're completed all of the locations that have been identified, we'll sit down with the engineering company and we'll start looking at how we'll start going through the process again. With us not having our own camera, we can just continue this on a cyclical basis in order to be able to take a look at these and make sure that they're staying up to date. Any of the areas where we've had previous repairs that are done, there'll be focus on those to make sure that they're holding up and they're performing as anticipated. And then yeah, so it's just going to be something that's going to be done on an ongoing basis. We may be able to reduce the budget if we're not seeing as many issues as we had before, or this budget may mean that we can cover additional areas to make sure that we're staying on top of things. Just before we move on to that, one of the other benefits that kind of goes along with this is that anytime that they do camera inspection, they have to flush it. So they do cleaning of the line as they go through it. So that makes sure that we don't have any kind of blockages or anything like that. So it's kind of a win-win situation. We get to see what it looks like, but also get to make sure that it's also cleaned out.
And the next project is our septic receiving station. So that should be completed in 2026 and is covered by the REDIP funding that we received.
So I just want to clarify. So there's a couple of these projects that have been carried over, the septic receiving station, the chlorine generator. Those were anticipated to be completed last year. We had every intention of having them completed by the end of the year. And the challenges associated with tariffs and getting materials across the border has really pushed these things back. We were told that the septic receiving station was going to come in back in November, then it was December. Now it's back out into sometimes late March into early April. We're just seeing these things get pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. It's the unfortunate situation that we're running into with some of these very specialized pieces of equipment. Anything that has anything that's coming across the border is just seeing huge amounts of delays.
And the last project in the sewer department is the carryover of the SCADA portion for sewer that we will be completing in 2026.
So just to clarify on the SCADA piece, I think we talked about it when it was brought forward. The project is allowing us to have all of our water and our sewer systems under the same software, same viewing platform, all of that types of stuff. So it's going to make it a lot more efficient for our operators to be able to utilize one type of software in order to be able to look at issues, be able to look at how the stations are performing, whether there's issues that are associated with it, be able to collect data that'll show us whether it's performing the way that it's supposed to. One of the big things with pumps, of course, is that you start seeing longer run times. That either means that you have more flow that's coming in on a sewer side, or you're having more demand on the water side. So those will help us to identify upgrades earlier so that we're not running right up against the wall to say, okay, it's running at 100%. We're already maxed out. We needed to replace this 5 years ago because by the time it's replaced, we're at 110% of the capacity. So that's that's part of the reason the SCADA systems are so important. It provides us data as well as monitoring.
So I think this is great. And I know that I noticed some of the reasons why we're doing these projects is so we can handle new development. And so are we getting closer now to being able to handle new development? So our system isn't at or close to capacity.
Yeah, so our master plan identifies areas that have bottlenecks. So things like the co-op
Right.
sewer main
Yeah.
is being replaced so that we have that additional capacity. We're also taking a look at those to help us identify areas where there can be development, or when we do our replacement, we can increase that size in order to accommodate development in the future. So it's a combination of the data that comes out of the SCADA packages and where we're at currently, as well as those master plans, which say how your water and your sewer system are performing. They have already taken into account increases in areas where we've said there's potential for development, and that gives us those benchmarks of, okay, you can add 20 houses to this
Okay.
location before we have to increase the size of the water main or the sewer main. So, yeah.
All right, so the next one is our equipment reserve fund. So this is the fund where we run all our equipment through. We continuously put money into the fund. We also track what the expenditures and our equipment costs for us, all of our wheeled vehicles and other. So this reserve is usually around 200 to 300,000 in value, which is enough to purchase a piece of equipment should something go wrong or to cover it off. But normally when we're purchasing larger pieces of equipment, you'll see in here we do loans or leases or some other type of, but there's enough in there to cover contingencies or emergencies. The new addition is the loan for the wheeled excavator and the sweeper broom. The grant needs we've already discussed. So council had requested additional information on one of the grant and aids in here, and I have not received any information yet, although I have requested it, so I haven't received that. So for now, it is in the budget, but with the note that council has said that they want additional information before that would ever go out. The library budget is consistent with the prior year. There's a $10,000 increase per their request. The next one is our larger spreadsheet, which just breaks down our reserves and where our money is right now. There are some of the bigger reserves on the bottom, which tell you what projects we used money for in 2025 and what we're planning to do in 2026. So it kind of gives a breakdown by reserve of our bigger projects with the totals at the end of what we have in reserves. So right now we're sitting at around, here's my notes. Sorry, I've got too many pieces. We've got about 20 million in reserves at the end of 2026 with all these projects included. We also have on the other end about 6 million in surpluses through general water and sewer, and those are just surpluses that are gathered over operations and expenditures in each year. I haven't finalized those surpluses yet, but usually it's around $6 million in just those. Most of that being the general fund. There's about 1 million, 1.2 million in each of the water and sewer. So very healthy reserves.
Capital and capital planning, is that a reserve that we need to be putting down?
This is a grant that was given to us, I can't remember
Yeah.
when it was given to us. It was probably in 2020 through 21, 22, around there. We received 2 different payments and we have been using it and it is going down, but it's more for not so much infrastructure deficits like RBA, but it's for planning for new capital and capital infrastructure.
We'll go to Councilor Ballmer, then to Councilor Franco.
Just a quick clarification for me on the traction and retention, we've got over $500,000 type of thing planned. What does that be? How do we use that and how do we track that? Can anyone answer that?
So the attraction and retention reserve is part of the bylaw that we created, which is tied in with the industrial reserve. So we increased the major industry tax by about 10 mil points, I believe. And the difference in the taxes when we did that was the amount that we were going to put annually. It's split into those two reserves. So one was to use for attraction and retention, which was to attract and retain new business, new anything to Vanderhoof, and the industrial was to save up in case we had a major industry closure like has happened. So
What
The
types of things are we doing though on the attraction, retention? Is it
Well,
all-
I believe now is when we would start to use that reserve.
Yeah, if I could, I think, Tom, I think that's a good one for strategic planning.
Yes.
Because we need to have that
Exactly.
conversation. We've been setting that aside. We were really wise to do that back in the day. So, but today's the day, right? Today's the day. So sometime this year, we have a planning session with staff and figure that out. So that'd be
And-
my,
Yeah, and we're going to have a presentation on our new economic development and diversification strategy, and there may be some plans in there as to how we can attract and maybe there is some room to use those funds for those type of projects.
I think I might know the answer to this question, and hopefully it's not a hard no, but the capital and planning reserve, can you use 300,000 of that to plan your pickleball courts?
I would have to check on the particulars of that particular grant, but I believe, yes, you can use.
So I would want to make a motion that we, if that is doable, that we take $300,000 and do the engineering portion and put that into a capital project. And if we don't get it done till later this year, that's fine. It's just that we know. So I'd move that. Take 300,000 out of the capital and planning reserve if allowed. And Margaret will find that out.
We have a second. Further discussion.
And that is it.
Thank you.
I drank it all now in between. I just finished it. It lasted the whole present. I haven't rolled it up yet. I'm waiting for a break.
We, take a-
So I believe now there are a couple of resolutions that we need Willeen to read back to you.
Oh,
So there
yes.
are a few resolutions we need at
Yeah.
the end of this budget presentation.
Well, there's those ones that are highlighted. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
We
working
need
on
to find a way
that.
to.
We're working on that.
That council approved the following projects prior to adoption of the 2026 budget. 7,800,000 for the Northside Water Treatment Plant upgrades, 200,000 for design only of the recreation lift station replacement, 607,494 for airport turn pads, and 250,000 for the new workspace upstairs in the Public Works building.
Yes.
Further discussion. All in favor? And that's carried.
And Willeen, do we have to do something to be able to go in camera to
No.
talk about that? Okay.
I checked, we can just go, because everybody's here. We can just
Okay.
adjourn.
Okay, we're adjourned.